Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Facebook Live Take 2. I wanted to start by just saying I apologize about yesterday. I know that we were supposed to do a Facebook Live event yesterday, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on what happened with yesterday. As you can see, I'm filming from the safety of my own home, but the downside to that is that my producers aren't here to help me out as closely as they'd love to be. So they're definitely helping me out live. I have her on my standby on my phone. So with that, I would love to welcome everybody to Facebook Live. Today we're really going to be talking about resume tips. Now these are general tips, and I kind of drill them down to about 10 tips that you can keep in the back of your head while you're creating your next resume, okay? Now the thing to remember is that resumes are like you. They're unique. They're not going to be something that is a stamp or a cookie cutter outcome or a template that's going to promise you success. The best opportunity for you to increase your chances with your resume is to make sure that it is something that brings you confidence and is a really useful tool for you during your job searching and during your interviewing process, okay? So we're going to talk about 10 tips for resumes. If you do want extra help with resumes, Meta is wonderful. We've got a lot of different services and programs that are ready and available for you, okay? So if you do want more information, please take a look at our website at metaservices.ca, or even better, give us a call at 613-966-9069, and we would be happy to talk to you about it. Okay. Now, the one other thing that I wanted to mention that I mentioned yesterday is that we do have a giveaway for a $25 gift card for some gas to help you out during these times. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to enter yourself into that as we go. Okay. So tips on resumes. Number one, the best thing to remember is that it's a living document. It is not something that you can just create once and consider it great and leave it, okay? If you're like me, you try to do your resume as good as you can and then you try to avoid it for as long as you can. But the thing to remember is that, every time we go back to our resumes, we can get that sense that, it's definitely not, it's not bringing me the confidence that it used to, or you see that it doesn't encompass all of those characteristics, all of those qualities, all of those abilities that you've acquired over the years. And so, the very first tip that I like to give people is to make sure that you're revisiting your resume on a fairly regular basis. Now, I don't mean you have to make it a Friday night adventure every week, but at the same time, be comfortable revisiting your resume. And when you learn a new skill, when you come into a new experience, go back and check your resume and see how that fits into maybe some of your employable skills. Because at the end of the day, that's your very first impression to an employer. And so if you can make that as close of a representation of you as possible, the closer or the better the chances they're going to have of getting you an interview, okay? I also wrote down all my tips so I didn't forget today. So having said that, you want to make sure that you're error-free on your resume. And that can be easier said than done because mistakes, if you're looking at your own language and your own typing, and if you've built bad habits like me on texting and you use short forms and slangs, it can be something that bites you in the end, okay? So remember that when we're talking about making your resume a mistake-free, we're making sure that there's no doubt that comes up when the employer is looking at your resume. If they start to see mistakes, whether it's in grammar, whether it's in spelling, whether it's in improper titles, that's going to cast doubt. And at the end of the day, what we want to make sure the employer has is more confidence than doubt, because that's what's going to get us hired. Okay? Things like incorrect terms and poor grammar are really going to hurt you as well, especially if you're going to apply with your resume in the same industry. We can't take for granted how much the employers know about their own field, and so they will be looking for key terms, key words that are going to emphasize to them how much competence you have for that job. Okay. Tip number 3, Clean and clear is best, okay? Employers don't have a lot of time these days to be looking through dozens and dozens of resumes. And so what we want to make sure is we keep them in that good mind frame that they're being able to go through our resume quickly and to see all of those great characteristics that we have to offer very, very quickly, okay? And that really makes it easier for the employer to see if you've got a really good format. Now, if you've ever gone online and you've looked at the different formats for resumes, you're going to know that there's probably well over a dozen different formats that you can use. Templates, there's different sorts of resumes that we're going to talk about. But the really thing to remember is that for the format, number one, it's got to be clean and clear. Number two, it has to bring you confidence. And number three, it has to be an appropriate length. Now, that last part can be really difficult for people, including myself. We come into a world now where we've had a lot of different experiences in a lot of different industries. And so we've got a lot of different transferable skills. Transferable skills are those things that you brought with you. Those experiences, whether it's being a team player, whether it's, problem solving, it can be even more detailed than that. But those transferable skills that you bring with you, we want to make sure that we emphasize all of that on our resume. And so it can quickly, build up into 2-3 page resumes. And we have to understand that employers really need to get a good sense if we're qualified so that they get an idea if they're going to call us for an interview very quickly. Time is money for employers, and at the end of the day, the longer that they spend on the hiring process, the more money that it costs them. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 is that resumes have to showcase your ability to do the job. So what you really want to make sure that's on there are all of those relevant hard skills that you bring to the table. Now, if you haven't heard of the term hard skills before, hard skills are all of those abilities that you can do that are absolutely related to the job. So for instance, a hard skill for a cashier would be able to run a purchasing order system. A hard skill for a forklift driver would be driving a forklift safely and appropriately. A hard skill for a surgeon would be, can you operate a scalpel properly? All of those things are the hard skills that bring you that competence. Now, it's not just the ability to know something, it's the ability to perform it that makes you competent in something. And so those are those hard skills. The second thing is to make sure that that resume is showcasing your soft skills. Those desirable soft skills that are going to answer for an employer. Do you fit in with the company? Are you somebody that I can rely on from Monday to Friday? And so those can be things like communication and problem solving and team players and, punctuality and all of those things that, again, don't necessarily make up the hard skills of a duty. Anybody can run a forklift, but to do it well and to be able to communicate well with your team members and to have a really good sense of, the software that maybe goes along with the shipping and receiving, all of those things are desirable for an employer that might not necessarily showcase just in the title on your resume. Now, having said that, that leads me to tip number 5. Tip number 5 is if you're going to be putting on your resume soft skills or hard skills, if you're going to be emphasizing those things, an ability to drive a forklift, an ability to build, a house, whatever it might be, employers want to know, so what? So you can run a cash register, so you can build houses, so what? What does that mean to me? And so whenever we can, it's really a good idea to try to fit in major results when you can. So an example of that would be, I performed marketing for my company on Facebook, resulting in an increase in intakes for the company. That's a bit of a result. Now, that's just coming off the top of my head. But you can start to think now, think about those times that you were working and what were the results of your job? What were the outcomes of what you did? If you were a cook, did you have returning customers? Did you increase brand loyalty? All of those kind of things are going to be really important for an employer to know. So what? Tip number 6, resumes should spark conversation. It shouldn't shut it down. If you're like me, you want to make sure that you showcase all of those fantastic abilities. But sometimes what happens is we get a little bit too much on the resume, and we want to make sure that we've shown everything that we've got to make sure that the employer knows that we're qualified. Now, here's the thing. When you're disclosing all of your fantastic ability and all of your qualifications right on your resume, that is your first impression. You still got to go through the interview. And so if you don't have anything left in your pockets, then there's not going to be any good surprises for the interviewer, for the employer to say, hey, you know what? Now I've got new information that sets them above everybody else that had a great resume. And so making sure that you hold some things back on your resume, whether it's a result or maybe it's a volunteer experience, or maybe it's an interesting credential or a certificate or an award, things like that are going to spark conversations. You want to be able to draw that employer in. Your resume is the first tool that draws that employer in. And so that leads me to tip number 7. Even though your resume is tool number 1, it also isn't the only tool that's out there. In order to make a resume effective at applying and getting that interview, it needs to be used in conjunction with your cover letter and your job posting. Now, we could talk until I'm blue in the face on cover letters, just like resumes, like I go all day. But the key thing to remember is this. Your resume should showcase to an employer where you've been professionally, where you have been, what you have done professionally. Your cover letter answers to the employer how, with your skills that you're on your resume, how you are going to fulfill the job requirements that they've listed on the posting. Okay, so if you ever have any more questions about cover letters, again, I really do encourage you to call us at 613-966-9069 and speak to one of our employment counselors. We'd be happy to either register you an appointment for one-to-one services, or in turn, we can help you with some resources as well, okay? Tip number 8, there is a lot of formats that are out there. You've probably heard of chronological resumes, there's functional resumes, there's targeted resumes, there's CVs, which I can never pronounce, but they're distinctly different as well. The thing to remember is that you have to make sure that you're choosing one that fits you. And a chronological resume is kind of that traditional resume that you've looked at, and it's got a list of, starting from where you've worked most recently and working all the way back. And then underneath each one of those titles, you've got, some duties that you've listed and some projects that you've been involved with, right? And, that can be great if you are applying within the same industry, because you can talk a little bit less about some of the duties that you've done, because you can have confidence the employer will see your title and know all of those extra things that go into being a forklift driver, or being a customer service representative, or being a prep cook, or being a taxi driver, or whatever it might be, okay? So on the flip side, functional resumes are really great if you need to make switches into your career, or maybe you've got gaps in your career and you need to start highlighting the transferable skills, or maybe those experiences and qualities about you that you've acquired outside of traditional employment environments, okay? So again, we could talk until we're blue in the face on what resume formats look like and the details to each one, and my suggestion to you would be to definitely reach out to us over at Meta and to talk about your format and to talk about what your goals are in your career, so that you can better understand which format or which template of a resume is going to work best for you. Tip number 9. I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that some of the resumes, it doesn't matter how great your experience is, the problems lie in the details of those little sections that we take for granted. Contact information. The rule that I tell people to remember is to make sure that your contact information is correct. If you're like me, at some point, you've lost your password to your email and you've had to create a new email. So making sure that you revisit your resume to make sure that your email and your telephone number are up to date employers are usually only going to make one attempt to give you a call. And if they don't get an answer quickly back, or if they don't get through and an email bounces back, they're going to go to the next person. Okay? Making sure that, if you've got a professional summary or a summary of qualifications, don't rehash everything that's on your resume. Make sure that in that section, really all you're highlighting is those things that are going to entice the employer to read further down the list. Those can be major accomplishments that you've had, or major awards, major certifications that are relevant to that position. You can talk about maybe even your most desirable soft skills. And one thing that I always tell people is to make sure that you've got your availability listed on that section as well, because employers want to know, are you available today, tomorrow, next week? Are you ready to go? Making sure that when you are going through your work history, that it is crisp, clear, and clean, and free of mistakes. No matter if it's a chronological, functional, or targeted resume, it has to be accurate, especially when it comes to the information about the employer and the title that you have with your position. A lot of times we'll get hired for a job that we don't necessarily know what that position title is. Make sure that you reach out to your employer, or you can go online and you can research the National Occupation Classification of Codes to take a look at what it is that your title might be. Because at the end of the day, if you're taking it to another employer in the same industry and there's a mistake with the title, the employer is going to catch that, and that's going to create doubt and questions that maybe you don't have the right information to, or even just makes you uncomfortable. Okay, so making sure that that information is correct in your work history as well as your education history is going to be very important. Now, the thing to remember with your education section is wherever you're putting in your licenses and your training that you've attended under your education section, make sure that that education, training, certifications, that they're all up to date. If you're finding that you are listing things that are not valid, that's also going to create a doubt for the employer, which is going to make them question maybe some other things that you've listed on your resume. And last but not least, that reference section. Usually people like to put the tagline on the very bottom, references available upon request. Make sure that you let your references know where you're applying. Because if you're transferring from industries, your old employers would love to know that they're going to be speaking to somebody that might not know anything about their industry. So keep them up to date. So we've talked about a lot already. Number 10 is really just to say, don't be afraid to ask for help. At the end of the day, resumes can be overwhelming. I've run into a lot of issues with resumes over the years, and I do them frequently, almost every day for people. And, every day presents a new challenge, whether it's something in formatting where, I've realized that I need to up my skills with Adobe and PDFs, whether it is learning new tables, or whether it is just improving my grammar and, my technological terminologies, to make sure that those are the right terms that are catching the attention of the people that are in the industry. The only way that I develop those skills is first I identify that I need to learn skills, and then I go out and I ask for help. And that's really what Meta is here to do. We're here, whether it's online or at the, I was going to say at the office, but not right now, but whether it's online or over the phone right now, we're ready to help you. We've got a lot of different things, whether it's, one-to-one supports, whether it's workshops and webinars, we've got career planning, we've even got Facebook Live now. So, there's a lot of different things that are available for you to help. So, if you'd like to have more help, if you've seen this video and you say, you know what, I'd love to get a little bit more information on resumes, please type resume in the comments section, and we'll definitely reach out to you and we'll follow up, and we'll give you some more information on how you can get in touch with services through Meta, maybe services in your area, or definitely some services and resources on resume building. Okay, now, if you're interested in that gift card, we do have a $25 gift card for gas. So if you type in Get Motivated in the comments section, you'll enter a chance to win that gift card. We will be talking next week and announcing that winner next week during our Facebook Live event. So next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about job searching, okay? But here's the thing. Remember that job searching can be hard on the best of days, let alone the circumstances that we have right now, okay? And the thing to remember is that our mental health is really going to take a hit. You know, that's just the normal way life is happening right now. And we need to make sure that we maintain that mental health, especially while we're job searching, okay? And so next week, April the 14th at 10 a.m., we're going to be talking about job searching and mental health. So tune in next week at 10 a.m. where I definitely will be live, and not like this week, but we will definitely be talking about mental health. So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all of those comments and those people that are taking a chance to take a look at me. Get motivated and stay healthy and stay happy, okay? Take care.